keep sinking into your blue, yeah, I keep sinking into your blue, stars, I keep seeing stars inside your eyes. In my mind, I'm holding on to all the sparks, flying through the dark while we collide. Tell me that I'm all you ever wanted. Take me to a crowded place, and I know all I see is the way that you breathe. Hit me like a hurricane, and I know all I need is your love next to me. Oh,
All right, guys, welcome back to the live stream on the official MLB Innings YouTube channel and Come to Us USA Twitch channel. I'm your host, JayFish. Today, we're joined by another special guest, Joe Kelly of the Chicago White Sox. How are we doing today, Joe?
Amazing, Jay. Busy day. Took my son to the field. He finally got off for winter break, and he's a big field guy. So he said, "Dad, can I come work out with you and throw and stuff?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So took him to the field. Got back. Babies were sleeping. They're not babies. I have twins who are 2.5, so they're sleeping. So that's always nice. You get to come home and you don't have to play dad too fast. I heard him just wake up probably a couple minutes ago. So if they barge up into this room, it'll be very entertaining.
Yes, it will be for sure. Now, is he like in T-ball, or has he started playing yet, or are you just getting him ready to start playing baseball?
Yeah, so he's 6. He's been playing baseball for a couple years now. We started him pretty early. He's on a pretty stacked team out here in Scottsdale. It's a couple of our friends that I played throughout the league a few years back. I got my former hitting coach's son on the team. So let me run down the team for you real quick. It's Cody Ross, MVP. Cody Ross is one of the coaches. We have coach number 2 is Ben Francisco. His son's on the team along with Cody's. Coach number 3 is Peter Borges. His son's one of our best players. He's on the team. Coach number 4 is Aaron Bates, assistant hitting coach to the Dodgers. Coach number 5 is myself. My son's on it. And then we have the head coach of, I think it's University of Chicago, Illinois. One of them, the head basketball coach, his son's on the team. We got a couple guys with some time, and their sons are on the team. And then we have maybe 2 or 3 kids whose parents never made it to the show or not professional athletes. So the team went undefeated this year. Our last game was 2 weeks ago. And then most of them play on the same soccer team together, basketball team. So they're all the same age, and it's fun. So we don't try to stack the league, or we don't try to stack the team. It just happened to be, we're all friends, and they've been doing it since they were, 5 years old together, 4 years old together.
I couldn't even imagine having like that much experience that young. Like, I mean, I didn't, I guess, expect anything else, but that's pretty crazy. And now, how does that season run with you guys being out west where it's warmer and stuff? Do they play around, or I know you just said the season ended?
Yeah, so it was you could play travel ball, you could play year round, but most of these kids play all the sports. So now it's going to be flag football season. So they're going to be running into flag football, and then after that, it's basketball. And basketball goes the same time, spring, as the new spring baseball season. So luckily for myself, all the coaches are there except for me. 95% of the time, just because during the season, their fall ball is during our season, and I'm the only guy still playing out of that group. Obviously Bates, he's the hitting coach for the Dodgers. He makes it a little bit later, but otherwise, Coach Cody Ross, Ben Francisco, and Peter Borges are there grinding away every single day. Couple practices a week. Got games. You got cages at Pete's house, and go from there.
Now, what's your son's favorite sport? Is it baseball, I'm assuming?
No, not at all.
It's not baseball?
No, man. He likes baseball. I think he needs to be stimulated a little bit more, honestly. If he had his choice and I had more time besides myself playing, it would probably be motocross. We ride dirt bikes. He rides dirt bikes, every other day. We take him, out here in Arizona, it's the best for off-roading, Can-Ams, trucks, whatever you want. But we have some dirt bikes that we'll ride. Number 2, I would say it's going to be football. Number 3, he has never played affiliated basketball, but he's really into basketball. So I would say basketball and baseball are tied. Um, but as he gets older, he's gotten closer. He's about to be 7. He's gotten closer to baseball just because I play and he thinks it's cool. But for overall fun and enjoyment, riding dirt bikes and playing football is his favorite.
I'm gonna say growing up, I wouldn't say baseball was my favorite sport either. I think probably basketball was, but then you get older and you just realize what you're better at, and I decided to stick with baseball. Now, you growing up, I know you played baseball a lot. Did you play any other sports?
Yeah. I played, obviously Pop Warner football, NJB basketball. I love those sports. Basketball was my favorite. I kind of stopped basketball early, just because I knew I wasn't, the tallest or the biggest athlete out there. Football, I was, better than your average football player. My father, Joe Kelly Sr., he played football at Vanderbilt. And then after Vanderbilt, he was a free agent with the Chargers. Never got any showtime. Got cut, but then after that, he played arena football. So his passion was football. He was a football guy. So 8th grade year, I ended my football season, Pee Wee football, and going into high school, my plan was to play football too and baseball. But the coach called and said, "Hey, I just got out for summer, obviously going into high school." And he said, "Hey, in the next week, I had a week off." He's like, "Hey, we have weights starting at 7 in the morning. And then after that, we're going to start doing, football drills, camps." And I said, "Wait, you're talking about 7 days, like starting today? Like, so summer's over for me?" He's like, yeah, of course. It's high school football. You got to be ready." And then I got away from talking with the coach, and I told my dad, it's like, I'm not going to play football anymore. He was devastated. And, as a young kid, you don't think working hard is the right thing to do at that time. And I didn't want to, waste my summer, not hanging out with my friends, not skateboarding, not being able to play travel baseball. I would have played, but obviously I'd been tired throughout the day, but I wanted a real summer. So I told my dad, it's not in the cards for me. And he was okay with it. He was upset at first, but like any good father, he said, "If you don't want to play, you don't want to play." So ended up when I was in high school just playing baseball only.
And then you mentioned skateboarding. Did you ever play that? Like, I wouldn't say professionally, but like, did you ever do any like competitions or anything like that, or was that more just a thing you did on the side?
That was my love, man. I still have a skateboard at every single place I go to. I have a skateboard in my locker in Chicago, skateboard in my house here. That was my dream. That was my passion. And I ended up, long story short, I ended up getting off the board. I broke my foot, in my sophomore year of my sophomore year of high school. I was already getting scouted to go to college. So it was smart to get off. But I was technically a sponsored skateboarder, an amateur pro. Skated at a skate park in San Clemente with Ryan Sheckler. It was just one of those things where that was the best way to show, my personality, fearlessness, the best way to, relieve stress. You didn't need nothing. You didn't need another person to go out there and with a glove and play catch with you. You didn't need someone to put balls on a tee for you. It was just get on your board. You could skate anywhere as long as your legs are not too tired and skate, a park, a school, a curb, a rail, a gap over some grass, and, anything. So when I ended up stopping skateboarding, kind of competitively, baseball got serious, and I never got rid of my boards. I just stopped, being a little crazy of trying to go pro in skating.
So what you're telling me is growing up, like you saw yourself being like Tony Hawk, and baseball was like you enjoyed doing that, but that's what you wanted to do. Like, who was your favorite skater? Was it Tony Hawk, or did you have someone else?
I was a big Eric Koston guy. Eric Koston, Chad Muska. Tony Hawk was world famous, obviously one of the best skaters of all time. But I was more of a street skater. So Tony Hawk and the Bob Burnquist of the world were vert guys, and street skaters had, I would say, more edge. Overall, more edge. The vert guys were kind of a privilege growing up, because to ride vert, you have to go to a skate park, a wood skate park. You have to pay money, or you have to be rich enough to have, a quarter pipe, a half pipe, something in your backyard. To be a street skater, um, you know, public parks, like I said, schools, which you weren't allowed to. I've been chased off by some cops. Your neighbor's curb, they didn't like the wax on their curb. But street skating was free, and like I said, it was more. There's two types of people. It was the vert street skaters and the street skaters, and one of those groups was a little bit more privileged than others.
Yeah, I would say I think I stepped on a skateboard like twice growing up, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I was more of that kid. It was like I thought about everything that could go wrong, and I was like, you know what? I just don't think that's for me. But
Yes,
we'll come back to
dangerous.
this real quick. Yeah, real quick. Anyone that's watching right now in the chat, you can put some questions down there for Q&A that we're gonna do at the end with Joe. And Joe, real quick, can we do some rapid fire questions that we've asked some of the guys in the past? Just some quick questions and quick answers.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so we'll start with the first one, and it is, what is your dream car?
Ah, man, that's not rapid fire because I'm not into cars that much.
Okay.
But I had a '65 Mustang in high school. My dad rebuilt it with a buddy. Sold it for 5 times what it was worth when I got it. So I think I would want to take Grandal, Yasmani Grandal's car. I'd buy it off him. So I'd say my dream. It's a '72 Chevelle maybe, but either a Chevelle, old Chevelle, or a 442 or an old Dodge Dart, some kind of American muscle.
Okay. Next one is, if you could bring 3 things with you in a post-apocalyptic situation, what would you bring? And this one could take some time, so I get that.
I'm gonna bring my family, even though it's very selfish because most likely they'll die and I can't save them all. I'm very bleak. I take my family. Um, I would take. Wow. I'd take my dog if he was still alive. And what would make me happy before I die? An In-N-Out cheeseburger, just one.
Okay. So I'm thinking you have more of like the Walking Dead type vibe in your head about that
Well,
situation.
I mean, I just know that you're not going to survive. So I want to have the 3 things that make me happy at the moment of before I go away, before I pass.
That's valid. That's valid. Next one is, if you could only eat one meal the rest of your life, what would it be?
I just said it.
So was
A
that
3 by
with the
3.
In-N-Out cheeseburger?
I'm gonna do a 3 by 3. Ketchup, whole grilled onions, little yellow peppers, only, and then I'm gonna go an animal style fry. Well, it's got to be well, it can't be soggy. With a large lemon up, which is gonna be a half pink lemonade. Let's go 3/4. It's a 3/4 pink lemonade mixed with 7-Up, and that'd be my last meal, and a meal I could probably eat. I mean, I already eat it 5 times a week, so twice a day wouldn't be a bad thing either.
It seems like you prepared for that question.
No,
Like you were
I mean
rehearsing
it's
that.
don't need to. It's the only meal that I would want.
I would say, I mean, that was right on. I mean, I've had some guys think about it and they just didn't know, but I mean, that was pretty
I
impressive
mean,
right
I've
there.
I've definitely been asked that question before, from like team media, um,
Mhm.
but it's very simple for me. In and out till I die.
Okay. And the next question is, console or PC in terms of gaming?
Definitely console. I'm on my brother's
Okay,
PC
so
right now. He's a streamer on he streams some games on Twitch, but definitely console.
so between
PC guys
consoles,
try
it
too hard,
PS.
man. I just like to be competitive, have fun, and these
I would say
PC
keyboard
guys are
mouse
just
is
crazy.
just, it's too much.
Yeah, I'm on a
I
keyboard
would say
mouse right
so.
now. Oh,
So
so which
you talk
console?
about, yeah, which console are you? Either PlayStation or Xbox?
Ooh, 100% Xbox. Halo guy. Halo guy when I was
Okay.
growing up with my brothers. Halo throughout high school. Halo throughout college. Halo now still. Got in trouble
So
for playing
did you
Halo
ever?
with my 6-year-old. My wife came in on us and I was like, "Knock, let's play some Halo. The new Halo drop." So
Let's
we
say,
were playing
is that the Halo
some
Infinite?
campaign. Yeah, we were playing some campaign, and she came in and she's like, "What are you guys doing?" He's like, and we knew we were both kind of in trouble. We're like, "We're shooting aliens. We're playing Halo. What do you mean what we're doing?" She's like, "He's too young for that." I'm like, "Damn." And I already knew he was too young for that, but like a great dad I am, I wanted to introduce my son to some Halo.
I'm gonna say Halo's a classic. Growing up. I was a PlayStation guy growing up, but I would play Halo at my buddies' houses that had Xbox, and that was never my number one game. I was more of like a sports game guy. I'd play some Call of Duty Zombies and stuff, but then I did
Oh,
switch to
that's great.
Xbox back in high school because that's what all my buddies had. So I'm an Xbox guy now.
Okay.
So, and did you ever play any other consoles like before that? Like, did you game on like a Nintendo 64, GameCube, or anything
Oh
like
yeah.
that, or was it Xbox when you really got into it?
Uh, I originally started out on Sega, the Genesis. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously I had a Nintendo before that. I went from the Sega Genesis. I went from Nintendo to a Sega Genesis to uh, I went to a Dreamcast and then an N64. And then I went to a GameCube, and then I started my Xbox career with the original Xbox, and then took off from there.
Okay, so Halo's obviously probably your top game, but what are some other games on some of the other consoles that you enjoyed playing too?
Big Super Smash guy. I like Mario Strikers. I like a game called Knockout City. It's an EA game and a Villain Studios game. Um, I like Pokemon still. I'll play some Pokemon on the Switch. Um, what else will I get into? I'm pretty much a well-rounded gamer. I used to be only shooting games, but with kids and everything else going on, um, I like to kind of veg out sometimes when I'm on the road and play a little bit of everything.
Now, you talked about you like shooters on the Nintendo. Did you ever play the
Splatoon.
007 game?
Oh,
Oh,
of course, man.
I must
007,
say
of
that
course.
I
They're
grew up
bringing it
on
back.
that.
You
Like
know
that
they're
was the
bringing it back,
first
right?
shooter I played. Wait, they're bringing it back?
Yeah, when we get off of this, look up a trailer. They're bringing it back. Competitive. It's gonna be
I
competitive
didn't
too.
even realize that. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna be hopping on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the first shooter I think I ever played because I was on Nintendo, and then
Yeah. I just
I
got.
remember playing that
Yeah.
game for hours.
Yeah. Nintendo's great because it's kid friendly, right? So Nintendo makes their own kind of competitive scene, uh, third person shooter type game, and it's very fun. And it's a game called Splatoon. And the new Splatoon came out maybe a month and a half ago, so I got my son downloaded it. It's a little tough to play because he's playing against grown ups my age who are really good. But that's another one of the best kind of, I'd say, shooting games that are kid friendly.
All right, and then we'll move on to the last question of this rapid fire question. I know this hasn't really been rapid fire, but if you weren't a professional baseball player, what would you be doing right now?
Oh, 100%. Shave my head, get some tattoos, maybe some teardrops, neck tats, sell drugs, man. I'd work for either the CIA or the FBI undercover. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and I think the next closest thing to be a professional athlete is being on the streets, trying to catch people who are bringing in, smuggling fentanyl, any kind of thing, and bringing it in this country, and being face to face with possibly a gun in your face, possibly have a chance to die. I would want to do kind of undercover sting work and go the FBI route and the CIA route with that.
Now, did that stem from like watching TV shows, or do you know someone that was in that line of work or anything like that, or is that
I
just
know
what you
nobody.
wanted to do?
That's what I wanted to do. So I went to college at University of California, Riverside, a great school, and my major was psychology. And I knew a friend, a family friend who did undercover work for um, Anaheim Police Department, um, and he was the same way. Shaved his head, Mexican guy, tatted everywhere. Looked like a gangbanger, but he was a cop. And so I asked him, what degree do I need if I want to do this, but at the next level, say I want to go undercover with the FBI, or um, you know, kind of work my way up, even if I had to start as a officer. And he told me the best degree would probably be a psych degree. So that's what I wanted to do. I want to pursue my dream of doing that kind of work. So I was a psych major in college.
And so you went to UC Riverside. You were playing baseball there. Did you? So you obviously wanted to go and do that, but when did you figure out that you're like, okay, no, I want to take baseball and do it professionally? Because you got drafted in 2009 in the third round by
Yep.
the Cardinals. So
Well, I guess I never really took it serious. I thought for sure I wasn't going to play Major League Baseball. went into Riverside as an outfielder, a center fielder, and then ended up, long story, ended up switching to a pitcher my freshman year, and I never pitched. Obviously I pitched growing up when I was 12. Didn't pitch in high school, um, but from there, turning into a pitcher, my professional dreams kind of took off from there. Had a good enough year, and was very fortunate to be offered the chance, and played for Team USA right after my freshman season, and then after that, my next couple of years, I played, obviously in one of the best leagues in the country. I played in the Cape Cod League. Um, so after my sophomore year, I kind of realized that, I had a chance to play professional baseball. And that's when I kind of got serious of, all right, I'm not going to be able to, you know, number one, I'm not going to be able to, work undercover if I wanted to, because say I get drafted, and it's not like I was going to be, the first pick in the draft. But say I get drafted, and I want to do undercover work. There could be, someone on the street who recognized me just from playing minor league baseball. So I knew that dream was over. But I still ended up pursuing my psych degree. I went back in the off seasons, my first couple of years in the minor leagues.
And so you talked about being an outfielder. What made you transition to being a pitcher? Is it just that they saw the arm talent, or what happened?
Yeah, so I was in a red shirt my freshman year. I definitely could have played, but the coach and everyone thought, I wasn't strong enough. I was undersized. So one day I was messing around. I got to practice early. The older guys were hitting early work, and I was in the outfield shagging balls for them. And, I was messing around. I was taking balls from, the warning track out there in center field and chucking them over the bubble. So I was grabbing balls and just throwing them over the guys taking BP's heads. And, it's like 400 feet. And the pitching coach was like, what in the hell? And so the pitching coach, came up to me and was like, hey, have you ever pitched? I was like, yeah, man, when I was 12, it was fun. I stopped pitching because when I was 12, travel ball was just getting started. It was big, and I pitched every single weekend, and I ended up, fracturing my growth plate from pitching. So from there on, I kind of just stopped. He's like, well, do me a favor. Like, why don't you go run in and put some cleats on? I was still in my street shoes. I was wearing some Vans at the time. So, and I want you to throw a couple off the mound for me. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, just for fun. See how it is. I was like, I'll throw off the mound for you, but I'll just do it right now in my shoes. He's like, all right. So we went over to the bullpen mound, and he's like, just throw it right down the middle, throw the catcher. It's like, all right. And I know pitching mechanics, I've done it as a kid. So, just leg kicked and threw it right down the middle. And I turned around and I was like, you want more? And he had like this weird look on his face, like he just struck gold or something. And I was like, all right, let me do it again. So I got a ball and threw it again, threw it right down the middle. And he's like, wait. I was like, what? He's like, be right back. And so he runs into the office, and he comes out back with a radar gun. And he's like, hey, do exactly what you just did, throw it down the middle, but don't worry about this radar gun. I was like, all right, whatever. And I was like, do you want me to try to throw harder? He's like, don't get hurt, but you're in shoes, but try to throw hard. So I threw a pitch, and I turned around, and I was like, is that good? And he was like, oh my goodness. I was like, what? He's like, you know how hard you're throwing? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, that was 95. I was like, okay. I was like, I can do it again. And he's like, no, that was 95. I was like, okay, I'll do it again. Watch. So I get up and I throw another one. It was 96. And I was like, that was all I got, coach. Like, I can't throw any harder. And he's like, don't ever go to another position player workout. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, tomorrow morning, instead of lifting weights at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be part of group 2, which is all pitchers. And I knew that. He's like, you're going to lift weights at 9. I was like, what? And he's like, and don't bring your bat to the field. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, there's only a handful of guys in this country at the age of 21 who could do what you just did. And he's like, you've never pitched before. You just threw 5 strikes at velocities that we've never even had in this program. He's like, now we're going to work on pitching. And this was the pitching coach. And I was like, I was just said okay. And I ran off. I, went back home, told my dad, because we lived in Corona still. And, I was upset. I was real upset. I was like, I went to this college. They're going to turn me into a pitcher. Pitchers are, not athletes. They suck, da-da-da-da. And he's like, well, how hard are you throwing? I said, 95, 96. I was like, I don't even know what that means. And he's like, oh my goodness. He's like, well, just see if you convince him that you could do both. And so the next day I went in and I said, Coach, I'll pitch, but I'm going to do both. And he's like, well, you could do both, but if you want to do both, you're probably going to redshirt. And I was like, I was like, man, I don't want to redshirt. And he's like, all right, we'll let you do both. And so I knew he was lying to me, but so throughout fall I was pitching and hitting, and we had a stacked team. We had a first rounder. I was hitting off guys like Mark Sapchinsky, who's in the league, hitting off guys like Dan Runzler, who was on our team. And I hit like 380 in fall ball and, pitched well. And so, season started, I rolled my ankle being dumb. I had a pickup basketball game and I rolled my ankle. So I was out for the first 3 weeks of the season. And so they eased me back in and they're like, hey, you're now your pitcher. So went to San Diego State and our closer just got hurt. And so my first college outing ever was a save against San Diego State. And I think Strasburg pitched that game too. He was in the bullpen at that time, not a starter. And so I went out there and I think I struck 2 guys out, got weak contact and, got a save. And the team was ecstatic. And I was like, oh, that was fun. That was easy. Like, am I going to, be able to play maybe the outfield soon? They're like, nah, you're done forever. And I was like, all right. And then I kind of started liking pitching as the season went on. And, I was the closer for 3 years at UC Riverside. And from there on, the career was written.
So I'm guessing once you found out that you were doing something that not a lot of guys could do, like, was that when you're just like, okay, maybe this can actually be a career? Because batting, I mean, you were a good hitter, but pitching, you're just like, okay, maybe I have something special here.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I never really thought it was special. Played Team USA, didn't think that was special. I had no idea. Went to the Cape, thought it was just another league. Scouts showed up because I threw hard. And then going to my junior year, when they were talking about, where I could be drafted and everything, that's when it kind of hit me where I was like, all right, this definitely can be special. And, went through a couple of injuries in my junior year, put a lot of pressure on myself to try to get drafted in the first round. Had a terrible year. But fortunately enough, the Cardinals still took me and had faith in me and, picked me, third round or whatever pick it was, third round. And from there, the Cardinals liked what they saw and ended up turning me into a starting pitcher. So all 3 years in college, I was a 1 inning guy and was a closer. And so the Cardinals wanted me to get innings and like, hey, we're gonna start you, give you a little piggyback role just so you can build some innings, learn how to pitch because we know you're new at pitching. And kind of succeeded, at most levels in the minor leagues as a starter and ended up coming up as a starter in the league.
How long did it take for you to develop your off-speed pitches? Because obviously you could throw hard, but you hadn't been throwing since you were 12, really on the mound. Like, was that difficult at all to develop off-speed pitches, or did that just come naturally with the mechanics?
With the mechanics, I was able to naturally throw like a little baby slider. The scouts loved it. I thought it was horrible. I thought all my off speed was horrible. So when I got to my first full year of pro ball, when I was a starter in Quad Cities for low A, I learned to throw the changeup, and I learned to throw, kind of a bigger slider. So it took me about one off season, a full year, and another off season to be comfortable with at least throwing one of those pitches for a strike. And so the next year going into high A, the Florida State League, I had one pitch I could throw for a strike, which was a changeup. And so it was fastball, sinker, changeup. And then towards the end of the middle of that season, I was a little bit more comfortable with the slider. And then I got called up to Double A. So it took me about 2 years to be able to learn what the off-speed pitch was for, because I was just used to throwing fastballs, and it wasn't like I was blowing fastballs by every hitter. But with the movement and stuff, I felt like I didn't really think that strikeouts were good, honestly. So I was like, I'm a starting pitcher. I want to keep a pitch count down. Like, if it was 0-2, I was just grooving a sinker down the middle and they beat it into the ground. I get an out. And I thought that was good. But, obviously they were trying to prepare me for the big leagues. So they really kind of forced me to work on some off speed.
So you were a closer and then you became a starter. And that, I mean, those are pretty different when you actually think about it in terms of like mentality and how many pitches you're throwing. What did you enjoy more? Did you like being in the bullpen more off the bat, or did you like when they switched you to a starting role? Which one did you prefer at that time?
When I learned to become a starter, I loved starting. it wasn't until I was a little older where I started working a little bit harder. But when I was a starting pitcher, I thought it was great. You pitch once every 5 days, and the days in between you get to watch baseball. And I thought that was the best job ever, and I still think it's the best job ever. It wasn't until I kind of got bounced back and forth as a starting reliever. My first couple of years with St. Louis. Um, when I was made a full time reliever with the Red Sox, I was kind of upset. Obviously, like every starter who gets moved to the pen. But at this point in my career, as I got a little bit older, I think being a reliever is obviously my personality. It's what I first started doing in college. My attention span is better to be a reliever. Me showing up to the park knowing that I'm going to play that day kind of locks me in a little bit more than if I was a starting pitcher. Uh, I wasn't the best teammate just because I was like, oh, I don't have to play today. Hey, you guys want to go eat pizza before the game, or hey, you want to play some cards? So when I became a reliever, I realized that was definitely more fun and better suited for my game, I think.
So you go to the Red Sox, you get traded over there back in 2014, and then you're in the bullpen. And then flash forward to 2017, you guys are in the playoffs, and you guys end up playing the Astros that year, and you guys lose, I believe, in what was it, the ALDS that year. And then next year, you guys end up playing the Astros again, and then you beat them in the ALCS. You end up winning the World Series against my Dodgers. Can you walk through what it was like for the first time being in the playoffs and then winning your first World Series and all that?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, as a young player, the Cardinals were great, and I was able to play in the playoffs my first few years with the Cardinals. So that was, great experience just leading up to being on the playoffs with another team. 2017 we got our butts kicked, obviously by the Astros. Everyone knows what happens there. And then 2018, I feel like we were easily the best team in baseball. We ended up setting the franchise record for most wins in a season for a single season in Red Sox history. And the playoffs were a gauntlet that year, and we knew we would run through some. Obviously, in the playoffs, everyone's the best, but the Astros are still great. The Yankees are still great. So going into 2018 playoffs, we played the Yankees first round, 5-game set, and man, those games were a battle. It was. I felt like that was the World Series. That was definitely the hardest part of the 2018 playoffs. It could have went either way. We ended up sneaking out of there, going to play Houston. I think Houston beat us one game, and we beat them, 3 or whatever. Have 4. I think they beat us once. We won in 5. And going in the World Series, we were a super confident group just because we knew that we already played the 2 toughest teams. Nothing against the Dodgers at that time, but we knew that the competition of the 2 teams we just played was talently better than the Dodgers. And I think the Dodgers were, if I'm mistaken, they had to play a playing game maybe. And they've had some tough series. They beat Milwaukee. Milwaukee was great that year. So going into those playoffs, we knew that the Astros and Yankees were our biggest competition, and to be able to step foot in Dodger Stadium, a stadium that I was able to go to as a child, to have all my family and friends there at the time, to watch me play in the World Series. It was a surreal feeling for sure, and it's something that I enjoyed so much. It was the first time in the playoffs, even the 2 series before that. I feel like I put a lot of pressure on myself, but going in the World Series, it was one of those things where, I played free and I enjoyed every moment of it where, running in before I had to get big outs in the World Series, I was able to, look at the crowd and enjoy the sounds and hear the boos and the FUs. And I kind of just soaked all that up and was able to, put on a little run in the World Series and was able to pitch and, fortunately enough in all those games and be able to, cement our names in the history of winning a World Series. And especially like a town like Boston, huge sports town. So to be able to do it with, your teammates and in a great city like that, it was, it's definitely hard to put in words.
Which atmosphere do you think was better between the Dodgers and that playing at that stadium or in Boston? And I know you obviously own Boston, so you might be biased towards that.
I mean, honestly, in the World Series, It was a different type of crowd. It was obviously fans of the teams, but people who go to those games obviously have a little bit more money and are a little bit more mellow. The crowd's a little bit older because those tickets are expensive. So it's not the rowdy bleacher creatures or the rowdy people that are cussing at you warming up in the pen. So the World Series honestly was the most calm playoff atmospheres I think we had all postseason. Yankee Stadium was loud. It was kicking. The Astros are always loud. Um, being able to play in LA and then at home in Boston. Obviously, the weather was freezing, but I think everyone felt it. You could ask anyone on that team. I think the two venues that we were part of before that was getting us ready for the World Series. And we're like, all right, there's gonna be a ton of noise. There's gonna be a ton of energy. And then it was barely more than I feel like a regular season crowd. So it definitely relieved some of the pressure on the players for sure.
I want to go back to the Cardinals too, because you did play in the playoffs with them, and I got to go back to 2013. You guys are playing the Dodgers, and you have the showdown with Scott Vince, like on
Yep.
on the line with the national anthem. I gotta ask, do you think you won that? Do you think you won that between Scott?
So I'm 100% going to say yes. And I've said this since people have asked that question throughout my whole career. And if we have time, and I'll tell you why, this is why. So,
Yep, we have time.
okay. So manager Mike Matheny, who was our manager at the Cardinals, and he still does it, when he was with the Royals. It was kind of a team rule where you had to make it out for the anthem. And as a young player, I was always kind of defiant, and I was like, all right, I'll make it out for the anthem, no problem. But as the season went on, I kind of started making not a mockery of the American, of the anthem, of the national anthem. I made more of a mockery with Coach Mike. And so I ended up doing the national anthem every game. And when it was over, it was a thing I started where I would stay on the line until Mike went to the dugout. And Mike was usually one of the last ones off the field. He would wait for the flags like you're supposed to. But I started doing it against him. And so I'd wait for him to go to the dugout, and then I come in to dugout, be like, "That's right, boys, beat Coach Mike, beat Manager Mike." And then it kind of took another step from there, where I would wait for the other team manager and the other team's players to leave the line until I got off the line. So I ended up doing it, all of September, waiting for every player on the other team, and no one caught me. So every player would get off the line, and then I would leave. I'd be the last one out there by myself. And I come into the dugout as a young guy. I'd be like, "Let's go, baby. We already won this game. I just beat all those dudes. We already won. We won the national anthem. Now we're going to win the game." Like, just hyping up the boys, And so it carried throughout the playoffs. I didn't change. It wasn't one of those things I was going to change. And someone on the Dodgers noticed it in one of the games, maybe, not sure when. And so obviously Van Slyke noticed, and he got word of it. And so Van Slyke knew that I would go into the dugout celebrating, saying this series is over, because obviously I was the last one on the line. And so whatever game it was, I think it was 5 or something. That's when the standoff happened, and I wasn't leaving. And so here's the reasons why I won. Number one, my ass was all the way out there on the line. I was on the cutout.
He was
Van
right outside
Slyke
the dugout.
Was 2 inches away from the dugout rail, so he wasn't even out there. Number two, I had permission, and you could call Mike Matheny right now. I had permission to win that standoff from my manager. I turned around at one point during the anthem, you can see in the video, and Mike, who I thought was going to kill me, smiles and goes, "You better not lose this. Do not leave that line." And I said, "Oh, okay. I'm not going to leave the line." And so I had permission from my manager to stay out there as long as we needed. And so Michael Wacha's about to throw his first pitch of the game, and Gibby, the umpire, everyone knows, takes off his mask, said, "Hey, let's go." And so at that point, I wasn't gonna go. I wasn't gonna leave because I already had permission from my manager. So what I did was fake, like, turn to the dugout, like pretend I'm gonna walk, and then the whole time I was always gonna turn around. And so when I turn around, I see Van Slyke leaving, and they're getting hyped over there. They're slapping him. They're going, "Yeah, let's go. We won. He moved, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada." And I was like, what's going on here? And so they're celebrating like they won, but they didn't know my side of the story. They didn't know what happened. And I come back in the dugout. I'm like, no, we won, blah, 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 blah. They're like, oh, he moved first. And the whole time in my head, I was like, I'm going to deke so to make him move, to go back to the dugout. There was no reason for me to leave. I mean, I could have got tossed out of the game. I was in starting pitcher, and I had verbal confirmation from my manager to say, you better not lose, stay as long as you need. And so at that point, the standoff was over. Both sides think they won when there was only one true winner, which was myself and the St. Louis Cardinals. Whatever they want to think, they could think. We ended up, clinching that game and going on, to play the Boston Red Sox in the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched that, when you step back, like, you're still so much further out than he ever was the whole time. So that's where I just didn't get how he thought he won. Like, when you took that step back, you were still how many steps further out than he was. Like, I feel like he was cheating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was never as far out as I was. And if he knew the whole story, I think he's heard it before. And you could ask Mike Matheny. There was no need for me to leave. I wasn't playing the rest of that series. I might have started Game 7, but toss me, whatever. And I had my manager's approval of don't lose this. So it was one of those things where it was 50-50. And at the time when I used to be on social media said it was 50-50. I didn't feel like explaining myself that this whole story to the world at that point. So it was one of those things that it was very fun, and I know that a lot of high school coaches, minor league coaches, college coaches definitely hated me for that, because after that I saw tons and thousands of videos of kids doing it, college kids doing it, minor league guys doing it, taking a step further where they're on the warning track, like, all right, toss me, you won't see me. So it kind of became a little viral trend, which is cool to see. And from there on, but now the real story.
I was about to say, you like pioneered that, because they still do it to this day. Like in high school, I remember we did that all the time too. And
yeah, 100%. I was the first person definitely to ever do it, and then the second person to ever do it was Van Slyke against me.
And then, so also during that year, I got to ask you, did you ever get into a brawl before that point that year when you hit Tyler Austin? Had you ever been in a brawl? Because it looked like you knew exactly what you were doing out there, in terms of, like, you were ready to go. Like, it just seemed like you had done that before.
Not on the baseball field, but yes, countless times. Definitely over 30 in my life, for sure. Yeah, so it was something that I was definitely used to. Yeah.
So
there's a lot of
was
stories.
it any other sports or anything?
Oh, as a kid, in class, I have 3 younger brothers. It's been in the situation multiple times. It's not very fan friendly or kid friendly to say any of the stories, but I will save it for another day.
And then going on back, and then, so the thing is, you were an Angels fan growing up, and then you beat the Dodgers with the Red Sox in 2018. And I respect you then. I knew who you were. Kind of resented that as a Dodgers fan. But then you signed with them in 2019. Like, did you ever see yourself playing for the Dodgers? Because I know you had an interview with the Cardinals back in the day, and you didn't really like them. Like, how did that all come about?
So at the time, growing up in Anaheim, Dodger fans were always annoying to me, and it includes my aunts, uncles, and cousins. The ones that have the Dodger tattoos on their calves and bleed blue. I grew up just playing baseball. I didn't really care to watch it on TV or anything like that. And so, I just said I grew up more of an Angel fan at that time, because I lived probably a mile away from Angel Stadium, a couple blocks away from Disneyland. And as a child and as a kid, Dodger fans were rowdy. They were kind of annoying, kind of throw it in your face type people. And Angels haven't won a World Series at that point, at that time in my life, not until I was, in junior high. But so I said, yeah, I never really liked the Dodgers, not the team. It was just because of my interaction with my own family members, my friends, uh, going to the games. I knew that Dodger fans could get in fights once in a while. That doesn't happen at Angel games. So it was just kind of like the whole brand at that time. So it wasn't nothing against the actual organization or the players. It was more of my experience growing up in Anaheim and not growing up in LA. But yeah, so ended up getting calls from the Dodgers, and I knew they're a great organization when I was a free agent. Was able to go to Dodger Stadium, talk to Andrew Friedman for a couple hours. Kind of, he picked my brain, see what kind of player I am. I picked his brain. We thought it was a great fit. And I never thought I would play for the Dodgers. My wife never thought we'd be playing for the Dodgers. She's like, the Dodgers, it's just, all the LA. I was like, well, we live at home. It's not even LA. Like, everyone, there's a stigmatism, like thinking it's all Hollywood. But when I was able to play and put on that uniform, everything that came with it, from, retired players to fans to the clubhouse to how that well-oiled machine is ran, from analytics to clubhouse staffs to doctors to everyone who's pulling on the same rope. It was very cool to see how much work is put in as an organization as a whole, and kind of changed my perspective on what goes on behind the scenes when I was playing across the field from them. But yeah, like I said, it was nothing against the team at the time. It was just against, all the knuckleheads who were throwing LA in my face when I grew up in Anaheim as an Angel kid.
And then this is probably the last question I have to ask before we get into the Q&A. But can you compare and contrast the World Series with the Boston in 2018 versus the one with the Dodgers? Because obviously the Dodgers was prime COVID, no fans and stuff, compared to obviously 2018 when life seeming was normal compared to then.
That's a question I always get. So I think the COVID year was definitely harder in the playoffs, because we were the best team in baseball for that shortened season, and we were stuck playing a wild card game against a wild card series against Milwaukee. So if Milwaukee wins 2 games there, we would have never made it. So it was an extra round, extra teams. We got to the bubble. It was just our family, no support other than that. It wasn't until I think the championship series where they let fans in. So it was cool. At that point, we had half the stadium filled in the ALCS, and then for the World Series, it was supposed to be half the stadium, but I feel like it was definitely more crowded than that. So as a players, it was more. Once we got to World Series, it felt like real baseball, just because the stadium was pumping. There was fans. My family was able to make it out. We couldn't hang out with them because of COVID, but yeah, the bubble was definitely a different experience. But the bummer part about the World Series, after winning, there wasn't a chance to celebrate. Obviously, during COVID, there was no parades in the streets or anything. So I think it was a big buzzkill as a unit, as a team, to not being able to celebrate with your teammates and your family and your kids and everyone who else who put in the work in the bubble, to be able to go act like an idiot for a couple hours on a bus and drive around LA and parade. So when I look back at it, I wish that was one of the things we could do as a city. And I think especially the city of LA, that they definitely deserved that at that time. But they were both different. Every World Series is great. It doesn't matter if it was a COVID year. I think it was the hardest time that we've had, or I've had in the playoffs, just because, like I said, I don't give a shit about the 60 games this season. That's fine. People say, oh, it was only 60 games, but with the extra teams and the extra round where the number 1 seed had to play, against a team who, it's baseball, anything could happen. We could have lost. I think it was a harder playoffs, definitely for myself. I had 3 kids at the time. I had twins who were, less than a year old in the bubble for 40 days. So it was definitely the hardest I've ever had to play in playoffs, for sure. Like I said, they're both different, and I both enjoyed the hell out of both of them. So it's just one of those things that's not really fair to weigh both rings. It would be a better question if it was, let's just say last year where it was a regular season with fans, to be able to compare them for sure.
And then one last thing, the World Series trophy in 2018, I think I saw that. I think one of the flags in the World Series trophy broke off to like some can being thrown. I'm guessing none of that happened with the Dodgers trophy. I'm sure that one's pristine.
That one was barely touched, man. It's just touched by all the people who were able to spend time with us in the bubble and the team. But in 2018, I think I don't know who had it. I don't know if it was myself or maybe Cora, but you know, Boston's wild. So everyone's throwing up shots, everyone's throwing up beers, and one of them hit the flag and broke it off. And I was like, oh my God, that guy. I was like, stop throwing real quick, stop throwing. And the fans aren't going to listen, and why would they? We were partying. But yeah, one of a full beer can hit the flag and broke it off. But luckily for us, it was fixed, and none of us got in trouble for it. But the trophy in the bubble, we all got to give it to, I let my son hold it, take photos, him and Mookie taking photos, holding it together, touching it together, had my twins take a photo of my wife, like everyone got a chance. So that one was definitely more accessible, and it wasn't one of those things where you had to be worried about germs. It wasn't like someone was, drinking a beer off of it or anything like that.
Alrighty, we're gonna switch over to the Q&A now as well. So we'll start with Josh Goldman. Asks, who was your favorite teammate back when you played for the Cardinals?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to say my boy Shelby Miller. He was my ride or die guy throughout the minor leagues. We made it all the way at every level together and played in the big leagues together. But my favorite teammate besides him, I could say all my young guys who we came up with, but I'm gonna have to say we didn't hang out a bunch, but Rafael Fakal. And the reason why is there was one game me and Jeff Samardzija got in a beanball war. Samardzija pegged me a couple starts before, and so I took offense to that. It was an accident, and I came up the next game. We started against each other, and I whacked a double off of him. I almost thought I was hitting Oppo Taco, and I pimped the hell out of it. And Samardzija ends up drilling me next at bat, and so I'm still in the game. I drill him. Both sides are worn, and it wasn't one of the first times that we were throwing at each other. So Mike and the skipper at the time over there at the Cubs, we got on a phone call and said, "Hey, Kelly and Samardzija, knock it off." So we knocked it off, and so I think the next 2 weeks after that, we played against the Dodgers, and Fakal was an old Dodger legend, and I came up and I clipped one and put it in big Mac land around the foul pole. Umpire says home run. I'm rounding first, dapping up my first base coach. Let's go, first career homer. This is the first year replay was out, so timeout. We now got replay, and it was one camera angle, and so they replay it and they say foul ball, and I was like, no way, that's fair. This one angle. So I come back to the box. I have 2 strikes on me. Chad Billingsley was a pitcher, and I forget who was catching at the time. But anyways, he was yelling at me the whole time. Don't you ever pimp a homer off a veteran. You're a freaking rookie. Don't ever. And Fakal's on deck because he's batting leadoff, and he sees what's going on. And I step out of the box, and Fakal's screaming at him, "Hey, shut the F up. You don't talk to him like that. Go ahead. Tell Billingsley to hit him. Tell him this guy throws 100 and he'll kill you. He'll throw it at your face." And I'm still in the box just listening like, oh my God, what's going on? And so I step back in the box. I'm like, all right, he's going to throw it at me. So I'm swinging. Ended up throwing one in. So I just chop it, run to first, get out of there. And Fakal's still arguing with him. I dare you. He's coming up next inning. He's going to kill you. I'm telling him to put it in your face. And so from there on, Fakal became one of my favorite teammates.
All right. So Justin and Ash asks, "Hey Joe, this is Justin. I'm a Dodgers fan. I have a question. Are you a gamer?" You kind of already answered this. I don't know if is there any other games that you missed out that you like that you played? I guess I just wanted to get that one in there.
Any other games? So I traveled with the a sick monitor, a Pelican case, and my Xbox on the road. I made a little custom case, so I travel with it throughout the year. Um, the other games I dabbled into was I liked Sea of Thieves. I liked obviously the Call of Duties, Warzone, Fortnite. Pretty much any game that's hot and trending, I'll dabble into.
Let's see. Next one. AK's Gaming asks, "Hey Joe, huge fan by the way. True or false question? Huge controversy with the video of practicing changeup and broken window. Was that a stunt to hit the Astros players due to command issues?" Quotation marks.
That would have been a genius IQ play, but no, definitely not a stunt. It was my pitching coach was asking for videos of how my changeup was going, so I put my phone on a tripod at the time to film during COVID. Um, and number two, it wasn't a real baseball, which a lot of people don't know. It was a baseball training device called a clean fuego, which is kind of like a hockey puck. So if you throw a changeup and throw it right, uh, it's like a frisbee ultimately. So then it will rotate, sideways. And so I threw a good changeup, but I forget that it's a frisbee, so it caught a little bit of the air and then kind of faded. So essentially, it's a hockey puck. Looks like a half of a baseball. You throw it and you try to get to rotate straight. So at the time, I was filming on a tripod because he was the number one guy. Him and his brother invented that company. So he's like, "Hey, how's it going with my device?" I was like, "Oh, I'll show you." And so I filmed myself during COVID working on my changeup. And I just happened to catch it on camera at that time. So no, definitely not a stunt. The window cost a lot of money, and the wife wasn't too happy.
Let's see. Next one. Sox Nation 04 asked, what's your favorite city that you've been to?
Favorite city, favorite field is believe it or not, one of my favorite is Pittsburgh. I think the skyline's gorgeous. Favorite city, it's probably gonna be Boston. Not gonna lie, I love that city. It's small, it's clean, it's very family oriented, and I played there for 5 years. Great food.
Fast Mommy 13 asked, recall a funny/memorable fan interaction or signature moment.
A funny one. Like I said, I played a lot of video games. There was a time where I did a signing, and a fan who waited all night until the release of a specific Call of Duty came out before they had digital copies. Um, Said I waited at night for like 8 hours to get this specific game because he knew I was a fan of it. He ended up buying two because you were allowed to, and the other one he opened up, and I ended up signing the actual disc. So I think that was not funny, but it was definitely one of the coolest things that I've signed. Number one, it was Call of Duty. Number two, he waited outside all night just to get me a copy, and so it was definitely one of my favorite interactions.
Next one, I figured we would get some of these questions in the chat, but H-Town asks, what was going through your mind in the infamous brawl between you and the Astros in 2020?
I knew that there was a strict COVID rules in place, and it was one of those things where obviously the whole me and Korea thing became viral and famous. But it was one of those things that the way it was intended to be wasn't what happened. And, everyone's heard the story a million times, but, walking off, it wasn't one of those things where I wasn't afraid to fight. Obviously 2 years before I got in the biggest brawl in Red Sox Yankee history. But I knew going into the game, the rules of COVID, and I thought if you do something crazy, I was already getting fined a ton of money that year for not wearing my mask right. I knew that I would be fined a ton. So people always say I was walking away from a fight. It is kind of makes me chuckle most of the time. But I was following the rules of not trying to instigate anything. It was just more of a little banter back and forth. So that was honestly one of the only things that was going through my mind is don't lose more money just because I was getting an outrageous number of fines throughout that whole entire season. Because I was one of the guys who was not following COVID protocol, so to speak, as well as I should have been.
And one question to go off of that, you, I'm pretty sure, got 8 games suspension for that, and we've seen some lighter suspensions for things that probably don't seem as bad as that. Like, do you think COVID had anything to do with that in terms of like how long the suspension was, and just because of everything going on that season with you, or what is your
That
thoughts on that?
that was their number one thing they fought for when I battled against the lawyers and took our lawyer from LWPA. That's pretty much what they said. They pretty much told me that because I made a pouty face at a player, I pretty much put everyone's life in danger, is what they told me, because the pandemic was so scary at that time. And they said I got 8 games, and I said I was one who was following the rules, going back to my dugout, and I get 8 games. And you were saying that I was the one who pretty much put everyone in danger when it was the other team who ended up coming at us. And I try to make the argument that they put our lives in danger. What if they had COVID? They could have killed us, is what I said. But it didn't work out that way, and they gave me 8.
So we're about at an hour right here. We have some more questions. I don't know if you have any more time. If you do, we can get to a few more. If
I
you
got
gotta
about
go,
a
we
couple
can cut
minutes.
out.
Me and the
So
family are
can we
going to
do a
see
few
some
more,
lights.
or do we have to get out?
Yeah, 2 more.
Okay. Let's see. Let's look at these. Which one will be the best 2 that we can go with then? I guess this is a good one. Baconator asked, "What was your favorite MLB player growing up?"
Ken Griffey Jr. No questions asked. Yeah,
That's my number one
and
too. It's not even a question.
when we won the World Series with Dodgers, he made a cool tribute video. Everyone got their favorite players to make him a video, and he made one for me. Something I'll never forget. Thanks again, Ken.
Alrighty, and then let's see. Last question we'll have time for. We'll end on this one. This is a good one. Rayo asked, "Do you still have the mariachi coat you wore to the White House?"
100% hanging up in my closet. I'm saving it for hopefully when we win the World Series. I'm part of it and be able to wear it again to the White House. If not, I have one daughter, and I told my wife if we don't win the World Series, the only other time I'll wear it is for the father-daughter dance at her wedding. And she told me F off. That would be too embarrassing. And I said, nope, that's it. If I don't win another World Series, it's only going to be worn twice in my life. One to the White House, one for my daughter's wedding.
I figured you would hold that for special occasions only.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all we have time for today, guys. I appreciate you guys joining today. And Joe, do you have anything to say to our fans or your fans before we head out today?
I just appreciate you guys, sitting here, taking an hour out of your guys' day, and hope you enjoyed it. And Jay, thanks for the invite. Definitely love to get some games going. Especially when the season starts, maybe get on a couple streams, play some games, and be able to talk to the fans again.
That would be awesome, Joe. Seriously, it was an honor having you on here. Definitely been something I wanted to do. And I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
See you.
Hit me